Hello and welcome to the Stamperia Coffee and Chocolate mini album tutorial series designed for Scrap and Create. If you are just joining the series, all of these products that I'm using here are linked in the description box below to the Scrap and Create website, where you can just click on those products to follow along. In this tutorial, we are going to begin decorating the front side of page 2. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I have already done this. I've opened up and placed my magnets. So I placed my magnet here first, and it is about a 1/2 inch from the edge of this photo mat. And then I place my coordinating magnet to place this correctly. Now here, I am not going to place a magnet here on this flap. I don't think it will be needed, so I'm going to leave that off. I am going to be placing my burlap pull tab, and I'm going to need to place that here on the side so that you know to lift this up. I'm not sure yet. Once I get this one on, I will decide if I want to place one here as well, so that you know to pull up here too. So I've got my piece of burlap cut to 1 inch. I'm going to first apply my adhesive here to the side of the magnet. Then I'm going to take my burlap and put the ends right in that adhesive to stick those down. Now I'm going to lift this up because I want this to actually be here. So I'm going to put my adhesive there and then fold this over and adhere those ends into my adhesive. I do have a second piece of burlap that I am going to place here. So I'm just going to be placing this here in the center. And applying this just like I did with the other ones, placing the ends in there, and then I'll add my adhesive to the inside and fold these over and catching those ends in the adhesive. From this piece of the 8x8 paper, I've cut the bottom portion. It's already 5.5 inches. I just cut this to 4.25. I've inked my edges. It's going to go here in the center. Then from my 12x12 paper, I've cut a 3/4 inch strip from the side. So this strip measures 3/4 inch by 4.25 inches. Then I took my corner rounder and I rounded the corners on one of the sides. I rounded it on the bottom. And then I split this in half. So these pieces are 3/8 by 4.25. Now I'm going to place one on this side and one on this side. From this 12x12 paper, I've cut a piece to 8.5 by 6.25. Then I cut this into two 4.25 inch pieces. Now I want them to be in order so that this is a continuous pattern across the front. So I'm going to take my right hand piece and I'm going to use my corner rounder on my two right hand corners. This one is going to go here on the front of this flap. Now for this one, we need to actually cut out where this card is going to go. So I'm going to place this right next to my card, but making sure that I have that appropriate border on the top and the bottom. Now I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to mark right here where my pages are, or my card is at. So at the top and at the bottom of the card, I'm going to make a mark. Then I'm going to bring this over here and I'm going to center this so that there is a uniform border around my piece. And then I'm going to mark this here where the edge of that card is. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my ruler where this line is, and I'm going to look and see where this one comes over and meets it about here. I'm going to draw a line down to about here. Then I'm going to turn this and I'm going to draw my line to the line I just made, and then I'm going to come here and do the same thing on this side. So now you can take scissors and cut this, or you can put this in your paper trimmer and cut this. Once I have my piece, I'm going to go ahead and lay it on my page and make sure that it fits okay. So I'm going to lift this up first and see. Okay, so it does fit. If it doesn't fit correctly, make sure you go ahead and trim it. Then I'm going to use my corner rounder on the top corners, or the two right-hand corners, top and bottom. Now I'm going to ink the edges of my pieces and place these on my flaps. Once these are on, we're going to flip open and start up here. So I'm taking my 12 by 12 paper. From this top corner, I've cut a piece to 6 1/4 by 8 1/2. Then I've cut this into two pieces. These measure 4 1/4 inches. The bottom one I'm placing here. The top one, I rounded my top two corners. I've inked my edges, and I'm going to place these here inside this flap. Now we're going to move on to the inside, and we're going to start with this piece here. So this is the piece that I cut out of that front cover. I've trimmed it down, so this measures 3 1/8 by 4 1/4. I'm going to place this here so it covers the magnet and the ends of my burlap, and it's right at the edge. Now remember, this is one where we do have a pocket here, so we can stick something in there later. So I'm just going to make sure that it's up against the edge of that page. Then I'm going to cut a piece here, the same paper from the 12 by 12. This is 1 1/2 by 8 3/4. And I'm going to place this here on the front of my flap. From the 12 by 12 paper, I've cut one piece to 6 1/4 by 8 1/2. Then I've taken this and I've cut this into two pieces that measure 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. I have used the corner rounder on the two left-hand corners on this piece, inked my edges, and it's going to go here. The corner rounder was used on the two right-hand corners. I inked my edges, and this piece is going to go here. From my 12 by 12 coffee bean paper, I've cut two strips to 9 1/4 by 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to place one up here at the top, and I'm going to make sure that it's just above the edge of this flap, and that will line it up perfectly. And then the second piece will go down here at the bottom, right up against that edge of this little flap, and it'll go right at the edge of this flap here. Now that the background paper's on, I'm going to go ahead and apply my adhesive on my sides, again about 1/4 of an inch on each side. Then I'm going to close this and burnish this down so that it's a snug pocket. Now I do have my photo mat that we already cut, so it's 6 1/4 by 4 1/4. From this paper, I've cut from the 12 by 12, it was across the bottom. I've just cut this to 6 inches, and it is 3 1/2 inches. That's what was left. So I'm going to be placing this here. Then I have these two small strips. They're from this paper here. I cut a strip to 3/4 by 6 inches. I inked my edges, and then I cut this in half. So I have two pieces. They measure 3/8 by 6 inches. I'm going to first place one of these on the top, and then one of these on the bottom, And once those are on, I'm going to place this right here in the center for my photo mat. And I'm going to leave the back plain for now. Now that the photo mat is done, we can go ahead and close this. We need to cut one more piece for here. So I'm using my coffee bean paper, again, that 12 by 12 paper. I cut a strip that measures 3/8 by 6 3/8. Then I used my punch board in the center of it, so it created two pieces. And I'm going to be placing one piece here and one piece here right up against the side of this flap to finish my page. For the back side of the page, first what I did was opened up my closure band and placed a magnet about 5/8 of an inch from the edge. Placed my second magnet, closed it to place that on the page. Now from my 12 by 12 coffee bean paper, I have cut one piece to 7/8 by 7 1/4. I used my envelope punch board in the center on the left hand side, inked my edges, and I'm going to place this here in this section right up against that flap. Now I have another piece of that coffee bean paper. It measures 1 1/4 by 7 1/4. I'm going to be placing this piece here, but I need to cut out around that photo mat. So just like we did on the previous page, I'm going to line up my paper where it should be, and I'm going to place marks at the top and bottom edge of my piece, and then I'm going to move it down and I'm going to place a mark where that edge is. So now I'm going to go from that mark that I made at the top, and I'm going to create a line. Then I'm just going to take my scissors, or you can use your paper trimmer if you prefer to use that, and I'm going to remove this center section. Once my center section is removed, I'm going to place it back on the page to make sure that it is cut correctly. It looks like just the center, need to cut a little tiny bit out of the center, like I didn't cut correctly. And now I'm going to go ahead and ink these edges. And I'm going to place my coffee papers on either side. Next, I'm going to be placing a piece of my burlap on my closure. So I am going to take this. I've got my 1-inch piece cut, and I'm going to apply my adhesive to the inside first, like I have been doing. So placing my adhesive on the edge, lining up my burlap here, and then closing this up, and then I'll apply some more adhesive to the front side. And then press the ends into the adhesive. Now I've taken this sheet from the Collectables Papers, and I've cut 2 strips from this. So I believe it might have been like this or like this. But I first cut this strip, and I cut right at the bottom of the coffee cup piece, and then I cut right at the brown section of the piece with the hearts. Then I just slightly trimmed 1/8 of an inch off of the left edge, and I've rounded my 2 corners. Now I still need to ink these edges, but I'm going to place this here on the front of my closure band. And then on the back side, I've taken this section and I've cut this right at the top of this dark brown band, and then right at the bottom of this lighter brown band. I've cut just about 1/8 of an inch off this right edge. I used the corner rounder on the 2 left side corners, and I'm going to ink those edges and place this piece here. Also, before I forget, when we made these, I didn't think to round these corners, so I'm actually going to use my corner rounder on these. Since I did this on all the other ones, I didn't do this on this one or the next page. So I'm just going to hurry up and do this now, and then I want to make sure that I ink those edges of these corners. We're going to work on the center of the card first. So I have my 12 by 12 cut apart card that I'm going to place here in the center. Now from this paper, I had a remaining strip of the white piece of paper. This is all I have left of it now because I've cut into it. So I've cut one piece that measures 1/2 inch by 6 1/4 inches. I rounded the 2 corners on the left-hand side and inked my edges, and I'm going to be placing this piece here. Then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to be cutting a piece. That would be this piece here. This is 4 inches long by 1/4 of an inch high, and I'm going to be placing this here. Next, I'm going to be coming up this side piece. This piece here measures 1/4 of an inch by 5 7/8 of an inch, and I'm going to place this one here. Then this one measures 3 3/4 by 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to be placing this one here. So I'm going to go around and place them exactly how I had cut these pieces, starting with this one, and then I'll place the card in the center. Now we are going to flip over and we're going to start on this flap. I've taken this 8 by 8 paper and I've cut 3/4 of an inch off the top. We're going to use this piece. It is 4 1/2 inches by 7 1/4 inches. It's going to go here on the left side of the flap. And then from the 12 by 12 coffee bean paper, I've cut one piece to 1 inch by 7 1/4. I've rounded the corners on the left or the right hand side, and I'm going to place this here. I need to ink these edges, but then I'm going to adhere these down, and then I'm going to come over here because we're going to be using this piece for that section. With the remaining piece of paper, I'm going to place this here and put this right next to that score line. Again, making sure that I don't go over the score line, but putting it next to the score line. Then from my 12-inch coffee bean paper, I have a piece cut to 1 1/4 by 7 1/4. This piece is going to go here. Then from this 12 by 12 piece that I had, I cut from the top. This is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. I used my corner rounder on the 2 right corners and inked my edges, and I'm going to place this one here. So I'm going to place it right up against this small flap that's on the base of the page. That'll give me my 1/8 of an inch border around the entire piece. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere these on, and then we'll come inside the larger flap. To finish the page, we need to add one piece here. So from my 12 by 12 paper, I've cut one piece to 4 3/4 by 7 1/4. I've inked my edges. I'm going to place this right next to the score line so that there is a small border between these pieces. Then over here for this flap, from my 12 by 12 paper, I have cut a piece to 5 1/2 inches by 7 1/4 inches. I used my corner rounder on the 2 left corners and inked my edges, and I'm just going to place this here right in the center of the flap. Once I have my papers on, I'm going to go ahead and close all of my flaps and secure with my magnet. So this is it for page 2 right now. Once everything is done, we will come back and add some embellishments to these pages, so that will be in a completely separate tutorial video. If you are just joining the tutorial series, check out the description box below for the links for all of the Stamperia Coffee and Chocolate papers that are linked on the Scrap and Create website, so you can just click on those links, purchase those papers, and follow along. In the next tutorial, we will begin decorating page 3, so I'll see you in the next tutorial.